Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites. I'm by myself in the studio today, except for our esteemed guest, Representative James Harrison. I couldn't find you on the web because I kept saying Jim, but James Harrison. And I welcome you to the show. It's your first time.
Well, thank you, Pat. I really enjoy the opportunity to be here and to get out of a Zoom meeting.
Exactly.
I've been vaccinated. I've made it through the second shot in a couple week after that.
Did you post that on? I am sorry, people, but if anybody posts another thing that you've been vaccinated, I am going to scream. First we were doing everybody's dogs, and I was right with them. Then we were doing dinner, and now we're doing vaccinations. So I was old, so I got it like the first week. I just told Jack tonight it's a good thing. There's some benefits of being really old, because I got to
age has its privileges,
exactly.
right?
I got to be first. But anyway, I have never had anybody on in 6 years from Appropriations. And speaking of the key committee, that's it. You're it.
Well, it's been an education for me. I'm one of the freshmen on the committee, although I'm not a freshman legislator.
No.
So it's actually a great place to be in terms of seeing a number of different bills, and obviously the state budget, you know, touches everything.
Yeah. Well, before we get knee deep into
Sure.
that, you have to talk a little bit about yourself for those of you, or for those who are watching who don't know who Jim Harrison is.
Well, thank you, Pat. And, you know, we've known each other for a number of years, and we've all had different roles. I remember when you were a commissioner, and I was one of those lobbyists.
Right.
Advocates.
Yes, I went to a
as
couple
we
of
call
your
them now.
meetings. I remember at some restaurant we went and asking us what was new and exciting.
Yeah. So it's been good. As you know, I stepped down from my association world. I represented grocers and retailers, and we had a nice little association, still do. And I stepped down from there, oh gosh, 4 or 5 years ago now,
Right.
and an opportunity arose where my rep was going to have to step down because of a deployment for the Navy Reserve, and I was asked if I might consider it, and
There you go.
was appointed by Governor Scott, and then have had 2 elections since then,
Right.
Which I've been reelected, fortunately, and I serve 4 communities: Bridgewater, Chittenden, where I live. We live in North Chittenden, Killington, and Mendon. So
nice.
it's a rural district, but it's also a diverse district.
So this is only your first year on Appropriations?
It is,
Because it's really, I mean, I've always said I never really wanted to be on Appropriations. I would have liked the prestige of being on Appropriations, but they're never on the floor.
No.
In real life, you're on Zoom now, but they would always be in committee working on the bills, and you'd never see Appropriations.
We still are.
Are we?
Yeah, we still are. I mean, now that the budget's been sent over to
Right.
the Senate, our workload changes a little bit. So this week and last week, we did participate in any floor sessions and discussions and debate on the floor. But for the last 3 years, I served, or 3 sessions, I served on the House Government Operations Committee. I was very happy there. You get a wide variety of different issues related to the structure of government, related to issues with employee contracts, professional regulation, a number of different things. And so it was good. I felt comfortable. I felt like I was making a contribution.
Right.
And I actually put it down for my first choice for this session.
Right.
But you're asked to put down 3, 4, 5 choices, because
Right.
obviously the speaker has to put together a puzzle and try to balance things and whatnot. And so down, I don't know, second or third, I did put Appropriations if you need someone. But it's always like, gee, you really have to work
No,
there.
so that's 24/7. You have to know what you're doing in that committee.
Yeah, and so I'm still muddying through that. And the speaker was speaker-elect at that point,
Right.
called me ahead of the session and said, would you be willing to serve on appropriations. And, and I think both Speaker Kowinski and Speaker Johnson before her tried to get some balance. I can be outvoted on any issue, any day, but I do think there's an attempt to put a little bit of balance and make sure we get some perspectives on there. So I was honored to be asked, and I'm really honored to serve.
Yeah, no, that is a big honor, seriously, for those watching. It is a big deal to be on appropriations, but I always felt I like the floor action. And you have 3 times to stand up, and I've always got my hand raised, and I remember Shaq would be like, "Oy, sit down back there." But it's just, I like that part of it, so I never knew how I'd feel about working 24/7 on approps.
Well, and in fairness, the appropriations, I mean, they got a limited time window. When they start, when the session starts, you're immediately into the Budget Adjustment Act, which is kind of a mid-year bill to, kind of balance the books again. Maybe our Medicaid caseload wasn't what we expected, so we might be able to borrow some money from that account and put it somewhere else where the expenses were higher. So you're immediately into that, and the first few weeks of the sessions, you want to sort of quickly get up to speed, get that going. Obviously, the administration has a plan, and they, we sort of use that as a baseline, and then maybe make some changes to that. And then you're into the budget. And in fairness to all the different agencies in government, you need to hear their story. What are they doing? What are their needs? The administration, again, they put a budget plan together, and we have a governor's recommend. But, and a lot of it, we will mirror that. But then we make some changes because we're different. Everybody looks at things differently.
Did you get assigned a couple of departments?
Oh, we all do.
Oh, okay, because I know that was a thing for a while. I always had Mary Morris.
So it's interesting, and no one can be an expert on everything. And I will also say we may not be an expert on our area, but we act as a so we have 11-member committee. The chair's dabbing in everything. And the other 10 of us will each have budget responsibilities. So in my case, for example, one of my jurisdictions is the building and general services.
Oh, great.
So, all the state office buildings, the mail, the copy, all the copy, a lot of, it crosses across state lines. That's one of my areas. Another area I have is the Attorney General's office.
Nice.
So obviously different, and it's an independently elected office. Then I have some of the areas in the agency of administration.
Cool.
I have finance and management, and again, it's their office staff. I have human resources, which is under the agency of administration. The Office of Racial Equity is in my bailiwick now. Up until now, it's been one person. So, but that's all in the agency of administration. So it's been an education. We all, through the testimony of the different groups, it's sort of like if you're car shopping, we get to kick the tires, we get to ask questions. But when it's your section, you get to actually open the hood and look at it. Wow, what makes this thing tick?
And they're counting on you to.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So pressure.
And this year, fortunately, revenues were better than what we were looking at last summer. So a lot of what the governor recommended this winter was easy to accept. But if the revenues had been going down, which some years they do, we would have been saying, where can we cut? And that makes it hard because the committee's going to be relying on you to say, what do you suggest? This year it was more geez, the Vermont Symphony, for me, it's not my area.
Right, but,
They've been hit hard,
Yep.
closed down. Can we give them another $25,000? Maybe as we open up, they can do some extra concerts. So that
Yeah,
is
nice.
easier
That's nice.
to do
Right.
and propose than this.
Well, I think you surprised the Senate by getting that appropriations bill over there, because I was listening, where would it have gone? Approps? Did it go to Senate Approps?
The
bill?
budget bill would,
Yeah,
yes.
because they were like, I think it's earlier than usual.
Yeah, it might be a week or so,
Yeah,
but
because they were all going, now what?
yeah. What made it a little complicated this year is the beginning of the session, we had the budget adjustment.
Right,
And then, because we're still in this pandemic, and there's a interest by everybody, the governor, legislative leaders, to get going.
Right.
And so we dubbed it the mini COVID bill. I don't know if that's a fair title or not, but it included some of the initiatives that were originally in the governor's proposed budget, in hopes to get some of the money out the door when construction season, not July,
Yep.
the spring.
Oh, nice.
So, for example, there was grants for recreational trails, outdoor recreational trails. Everybody supports that pretty
Right.
much. And if we can get it done sooner, then we can actually use them and
Yeah,
put people
right.
to work.
There's a concept.
There was some
Right.
money for weatherization.
Right.
So we had that, and that took obviously some time.
Yep.
And then we went into the budget. So we
So
did
you-
work hard.
So that was what you were referring to as the COVID bill? That
Well,
was
we called it the
what-
mini COVID bills. I think it
right.
was
Looking for the number here.
H315.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. And that was our money. That wasn't any of the federal dollars that came.
Oh, there's federal money in there.
in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's,
So can you?
Yeah,
before we
well,
get- can you do this? I don't know. You had money left over from before, but I think we had to return it.
we didn't have to, because in the federal legislation, the stimulus package in December
Yeah.
took away that December 31 deadline
Oh.
and extended it to this year.
Oh, good.
Now, had we had known that last
would have
fall,
rushed to spend
we
it.
might have
Right.
we might have done it a little differently. I don't know, but there was a rush, either use it or lose it by December. I'm probably not the best person to try to describe where all the money comes from.
Right.
We have general fund, which is our income taxes and
Right.
a lot of general state revenues, and that we can spend anywhere.
Right.
And then we have federal funds. A big part of our budget, as you I'm sure are familiar, is from federal funds. This year and last year, it's even more
Yep.
with the stimulus packages. And those federal funds do have strings attached on what they can spend on. But, for example, as part of the budget conversation this year, although it was a separate bill, but you sort of have to talk about bills that spend money in context of the overall budget. The part of the federal package allowed money for broadband.
Right.
And so rather than use general fund dollars, which are something that are scarce sometimes,
Right.
we allocated, I think it was like $180 million to
Great.
broadband. Now, that won't be all spent at once, and it's, we've got a few years to do this, but that's hopefully going to be a good shot in the arm.
Well, if there's anything that will kick economic development getting going forward is broadband, because we're still messing around with that last mile. I think it's more than a last mile these days. We've got to do something. So I'm glad they've got the money to.
Yeah,
to get
and I
going.
think everybody recognizes that. The problem is that, I live in a rural area. Half of our road doesn't have broadband. And
What do they do?
well, we have DSL, if you want to call
Oh,
that,
and that's
but
what you do.
it's limited.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a consequence, if we were doing this via Zoom, I would be calling in over the phone, and you'd see my video, but there might be a little
lag.
disconnect, which doesn't make for a great
Right.
presentation. So, you know, it's hard, it's expensive, and I totally understand why, you know, many private internet providers say, well, I'll go to here, but
Right.
beyond
Yeah,
here,
it's
it's
costly.
a loser,
Right.
unless you get some help.
Yeah.
So, you know, what we're trying to promote is, you know, a lot of towns have banded together in communication union districts. Hopefully, they won't reinvent the wheel
Right.
and will tag on and
Right.
work out arrangements with the private
Have you
carriers.
had any testimony on the Skylink? Is that what it's called now, Skylink, which
know,
is a whole new concept? and
right.
I'm still trying to grapple with it.
Yeah,
but-
our committee hasn't, you know, we just look at what you want to spend.
Yep.
The policy committee, which would be the Energy and Technology Committee, I believe did at least look at that. I think they took a different approach in where they want to go. I'm in an area where, you know, I put a deposit down for it. So
Yeah.
if it comes
Oh, for Skylink?
for Skylink,
Oh, no kidding.
yeah, because
heard,
even in the build out, I can't wait 2 years,
No.
you know, or 3 years.
Yes.
You know, it's just
I would go
it's,
crazy without it.
it's a way of the way we do business.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully, we will not be doing remote sessions next year. If we are, I'm just going to scream. I mean,
Right.
it's
It
just-
must, I was going to ask you, and we got talking about the bills. In appropriations, which all the money comes, either starts in your committee or
Yeah.
gets to your committee. All I remember in committee is there's sheets and sheets of red penned pencils, and everybody's got, I mean, how do you do that at home? You must spend a bazillion bucks on copying and ink. They get you with the ink.
you know, it's interesting, and it's not just our committee, it's probably every committee. One of the things that, you know, we've quickly learned is one monitor is not enough.
Oh, right, exactly.
You have
Yep,
several
I agree,
monitors,
right.
so you can see things on different screens because, and if you see any of us, you know,
You're
looking on
at
the
another
side,
monitor.
we're looking at the monitor, another monitor with a spreadsheet or
Right.
something. And then you know, you learn how to, you know, we're all getting technologically a little bit better.
Yes. I'm still a hard copy person, though.
I love
need
the
it
hard
in front of
copy.
me.
And you know, you bite the bullet and you print out the copy of the budget and
Right.
all those pages, and then
Yeah.
you can go through and highlight it. But you know, where you're looking at those spreadsheets, you sort of increase the font and then you scroll to
Right.
see it. It's
I
I
know.
would rather
God
have
bless
a big
Yeah.
sheet of paper
Yeah, that's me. I'm bad.
to look at it,
I'm
but
bad.
it is what it is. And, you
Yeah,
know,
so
that's
you
how
were
we have to
talking
do
about,
it.
I'm sorry, I just was thinking about that, and how the heck are they working? Because that's appropriations. That's part of the deal, is to be walking around with
Yeah.
piles of paper. you know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just, you know, you still have it.
Yeah.
You know, I have a little desk that I work out of. Now I've got, you know, a couple monitors and
Wow.
iPad if I need that.
Yeah.
And then I grabbed our spare card table and set that next to it so I can put
Oh, great, more stuff.
more
Great.
stuff on it. And
Just take
books,
over.
you know, yeah, it's,
Yeah. So, and so you have a lot of committee meetings while they're having floor, they're on the
Yeah.
floor?
yeah,
Oh, nothing's changed.
there's not enough hours in the day to get through it all.
Right,
And you can appreciate some agencies take a lot because I mean, the whole agency of human services
oh, my God.
is you know, probably it's more than half of state government,
Right,
and
right.
so you need time with all the various departments.
And people need to be heard,
They do.
if I may say. I
They
mean,
do.
as somebody who presented to appropriations for 19 years, you want to feel like they're listening to you and understand, because you've put a lot of work
Right.
into this presentation and begging for money, and
Yeah.
and so they
Yeah,
like
you know,
that.
you do, and you get to ask, you know, obviously some questions,
Right.
and you know, obviously this year there was a number of occasions where, you know, when Dr. Levine comes in to give his health department
Right.
budget, you know, it's an opportunity to say, hey,
Yeah,
thank you
right.
for what you did.
He's become like the idol of Vermont.
Yeah.
I think my mother's passed away, but all of her friends, I think they're all in love with that man.
Yeah.
They just love Dr. Levine because
Yeah.
of his presence and the way he talks, and very calming and reassuring, and he knows his stuff. We're very lucky to have him
Well,
in this
and it's
time.
not just him. You know,
No, it's-
I mean, Mike Smith has done,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely.
an outstanding job.
Yeah.
I can remember, you know, one of the last days we were actually physically in the State House last year. You know, I went by the governor's office, as I often would, and sometimes I'd poke my head into the little side office just to say hi.
Yeah.
He was in there all by himself. It was just after, I think we had our first case or things,
really?
you know, and I says, how you doing? Did you sleep at all last night? No. And that was,
It's getting that white hair.
that was
is
just
booming.
the start of it.
Yeah,
you
right.
know. So we have I mean, we're very, very fortunate. There's a lot of people that
working hard.
really, really work
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
and still are.
Yeah.
But again, the light's at the end of the table. So anyhow, I'm getting off the
No,
track
that's
from
okay. I'll get you back on here because
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about some of the bills. And you've mentioned it, certainly you had the BAA, which is the budget adjustment.
Right.
And that comes in first of the new session, just to get it over with and to talk about getting funds back to departments that overspent or underspent or
Yep.
whatever else. And then you have the big bill,
That's right.
which is appropriations. And
$7 billion.
$7 billion this year.
Billion,
I was gonna ask
yeah.
you, it's B with a B, right?
Yeah.
Billion. That's sort of like the
That's a
pension.
big number. That's way out of my comfort zone.
7 billion. Well, we just did a thing on the pension, which is now up to 6.7 B with a billion with a B of unfunded
I
liabilities.
know.
We'll
And
talk
you
about
know,
that.
early on in this session, Joint Fiscal Office, you know, kind of gives us an outline before we actually get the budget from
Right.
the administration. And one of the things that they talk to us about are budget pressures, you know,
Right.
and that's
Oh,
front and
that's
center.
just staggering. It's
Um,
staggering.
This year alone, the actuaries said our required contribution was up like $100 million.
Right off the top.
I mean, it was like almost a 50% increase.
Right.
And there's some reasons for that.
Right.
I mean, as you probably know, the investment board lowered the rate of return expectation. We weren't achieving it over the
Right.
long haul, so we were just kidding ourselves.
Right.
So reality had to come back, and they lowered that a little bit, half a
Right.
point. And also the realization that, you know, someone, wherever, has not been projecting the number of retirees, how long they're going to live, what
Right.
they're going to be earning.
Right.
You know, it's no different than the Social Security problem we have.
Right.
We have, you know, as many retirees almost as we do paying into the
Right.
system that are
We
trying
have
to-
David Coates on the show a lot
Okay.
because this thing is a big thing for me. Tom Pell
Yeah.
took me out to lunch one day, and he tells me this.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think it was 5.4 billion with a B.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's never going to forget that lunch because I was a little loud when I screamed back. I just made this big,
Yeah.
gulping. Oh my God! And so he gave me all kinds of
Yeah.
paperwork and stuff. And David Coates has been working on this for 10 years.
I know.
And I say he's a retired partner from KPMG. You've got somebody like that working on his own time and willing to do that. Pay attention, people.
I know. And unfortunately, we weren't paying
No.
attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all I kept hearing, state government isn't going out of business. What does that have to do with
I
anything?
know. We sometimes look short term.
Yeah, we do. You're right.
And I commended Speaker Kruwinski a few weeks ago for taking the initiative to say,
Yeah.
we're going to deal with this issue. We have to deal with this issue.
Yeah.
I think she said we're up to 13% of the general budget now is in
Right.
pensions.
And we had two houses lower our rating, two bond rating, and
Yeah,
so now.
and it will get worse.
And I think Beth Pierce is going out with another bond.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Do you think they're going to nail us, aren't they?
Well, I think there's a likelihood that we will. I think that was, sort of address the fact that, yes, we got to get this.
Right.
Unfortunately, whether it was the wrong things thrown out, whether there wasn't enough conversations, she hit pause on that. And it's not going to get any easier next year.
No,
It's going to potentially be harder.
right.
And what we all need to understand is this affects taxpayers.
Yep.
This affects our bond rating. This affects every other program in state government because there's only so much you can do in terms of revenue.
Yep.
So that means something else has to be cut.
VSAC gets hit if the bond rating goes down. Housing. I mean, there's
There's
a
a
laundry
lot
list,
of ripple
laundry
effect.
list.
And I think the speaker understands that. And we just have to roll up our sleeves and tackle it. It's not a partisan issue. We just have to figure it out. And keeping the status quo the way it was, as much as we'd like to, may not be a viable option. We at least have to start, how do we start with new employees that we haven't made this commitment
I
to?
agree. I was so surprised they just now started talking about new employees. And although what I've understood is that we're a little too far just to let it lay it with new employees. So
And that may
everybody's
be.
going to have to take a hit at this point. When you're up $6 billion, that's
Right.
I don't envy anybody in that legislature to come up with. That's huge. It's just staggering.
Right.
Oh, goodness. But anyway, let me go. So just the big bill goes to Senate. They do their thing.
Sure.
And they're probably not going to agree with everything, which means they're going to have to do
I
a
don't know
committee-
why not. We did excellent
Exactly.
work.
You guys worked hard. So then you do a committee of conference.
Typically,
Yeah.
not always that way, but typically. I think last session, because of Zoom,
we
they communicated back and forth. What do you think of this?
and they didn't really have a meeting?
I think
interesting.
we did it without a committee of conference. I may be wrong on it, but yes, you're absolutely
Because
right.
you know what?
Typically.
I love it. I spend most of the day, because I work for Campaign for Vermont, so I listen in all the time, and I'm taking notes and reporting in, and I see the number of people, citizens who are watching. They don't fit those people in the committee room. You sometimes have 30, 40 people who, in a committee room, what would you get, 15, 20 people, maybe if you're lucky. So, and if it's really something, the public hearing that they had on the pension was just loaded with people. It was great.
Yeah.
I think the public likes it.
Yeah, and I think going forward, we're going to have to figure out a way to live stream meetings.
Yeah, I think you are.
For transparencies, we've grown accustomed to it, but
I
I still
think
want to
we're gonna-
meet back in person.
No, I know, because it's just like being in school. You miss the lunches, you miss the getting stuff done in the hallway, which it does. That's part of the deal. But I think the public should be able to see more than they do, because I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't have to look good. I just have to wake up and turn you guys on. You have to look good, not me.
Pat, you got to get a life. It's not really
I know.
exciting.
Well, but it's a job. It's a job. I like it. I get a big kick out of it. So anyway, so you had 21 bills so far this year, which is a pretty good number for coming out. And you had been willing to talk about a couple of them. And one was the H-159, which is a community and economic development workforce out of House Commerce.
Yeah,
Is that
there's
something we
there's a
can-
myriad of things. There's some places for workforce development, especially as it relates to our state colleges and stuff. Wide support for it. There is, as I said earlier, fortunately revenues were a little bit better.
Right.
Overall, we were, not knowing where we were last summer and fall. The legislature and administration were pretty cautious on the current year's
Yep.
budget, and as a consequence, we had some extra one-time funds. I advocated for example, increase in the one-time appropriation for tourism funding.
They need that so bad.
If there was one
for you.
sector that was hit bad,
Thank you.
it was the hospitality
Right,
sector.
right.
And I hope later this summer, fall, and next winter,
Right.
we have the best seasons ever.
Yep.
And that to me will, the lodging properties,
Yep.
the restaurants, all could use any help we can give them.
Because there's a lot of people moving into their second homes
Yeah.
to make them their
And-
first
and they're-
homes to get out of.
And even if they're not
'em up.
relocating here,
Yeah.
they're spending more time
right,
here.
right.
And when you're here, whether it's buying groceries or going out to eat
Right.
or spending it on recreation, you're going to recycle some of that money
Yeah,
right
good for
here,
you.
which will
Yeah.
help us. But there are a number of other initiatives in there. It all helps.
Has the Better Places.
That's part of that as
yeah,
well.
That,
Yeah.
I don't know if we haven't talked about that on the show. It's really to take public spaces
Right.
and make them more attractive,
Yeah.
make them more accessible, so that people can sort of see other people.
Sure.
Please.
Sort of like a little
yeah.
mini park or
Yeah,
something,
right.
a
And I
place
think
to
that's
go
great.
and sit down and,
Yeah.
just enjoy.
Yeah.
Vermont, Vermont is, such a beautiful state.
Yeah.
And we need to promote that and, and wherever we're not so pretty, how can we transform it?
And I think that's where they also had the mini TIFs in the Better Places. It wasn't the full TIF program
Right,
where you have to
right.
be a big town like Chittenden or one of the bigger towns who have the staff to
Yeah.
pull this off. But a mini TIF would be a smaller town like Berlin, where I live, where it's not much money, but it's geared to fixing things up and putting money back in the area. So I think that's going to go a long way with our small towns. I think I
Yeah.
know I was listening to Karen.
There's no
Horn.
magic answer, but, all these things I think are well intended
Yeah.
and, certainly will be hopefully helpful going forward. I think everyone is, how do we get out of this and then build for the future?
Yeah. Do you? I shouldn't, because I don't think it was on our list. But the State Ethics Commission.
Okay.
Did they have funding in there for a person to help Larry? Half a
they-
person maybe.
We didn't allocate any money.
Oh, okay.
We gave them authorization to hire because
if
they
they
had a
find it.
carry forward in their
Oh,
budget.
Okay.
And, the Ethics Commission, as you probably know, it's a part-time position.
Right.
It's an attorney, but he has to be his own admin,
Right.
and that's not real
Yeah,
efficient
he
when he's
wasn't
got
too
limited
happy about
time.
that.
Yeah, so
Right.
I think there's recognition. So I think, at least to start, use some of your carryover funds and then go forward
Because I
from
think
there.
I don't think he realized that when he took on the job that he was going to be
Yes.
filing and paper clipping and all that sort. And he's a perfect person for that, Larry Novins. He's just excellent at the job. Campaign for Vermont pushed ethics a couple of years ago and
I remember
kind
that.
of got it started. So
Yep.
we've met with Larry a few times and trying to help him kind of push things along a little
Well,
bit. 'Cause-
part of what they're going to be doing is, coming out with this new code of ethics.
Yes, right.
And once you do that, you need to educate
Right.
people about that. So,
Yeah. That's great, because he is, I'm like, bless him, because he's really good.
Yeah.
Because they had a little rough start with, with our governor's business, which I
Yeah.
thought he had taken care of, but
Yeah.
anyway. So you, let's see, let me just get some of these, what goes on and on. I love this one, the beverage container redemptions.
sure,
What
we're
is
taking that
one?
up tomorrow.
Oh, are you really? What is
Yeah.
that about?
So, the Vermont's had a bottle bill since, I think, maybe 1972.
Yeah.
I mean, nearly 50 years.
Pocket cash, you bring down the
And
bottles.
there are some advocacy groups that have been promoting putting a deposit on more items. And there may have been a time and a place for that, but quite honestly, recycling is a whole lot different
Right.
than it was in 1972.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, advocates are pushing it. It's come out of two committees. It may come out of our committee tomorrow, but I worry about, the cost. People see the nickel and they say, okay, I'm going to pay an extra nickel, but
Right.
when I return it, I'm
I'll
going to
get it
get an
back.
extra nickel. That's only part of it.
Yeah.
There's a handling fee that's paid to the store or the redemption center, might be 4 cents or 5 cents.
Yeah.
That's got to be built into the cost of the product. There's a cost, one of the things that we should worry about with climate is there are companies that send empty trucks around the state to the stores and redemption centers for the sole purpose of picking up empties. Not very carbon friendly.
No.
Additionally, we're going to continue to bring many products, containers, to the recycling depot, the transfer station,
Right.
or if you're fortunate enough to have a blue box pickup program.
Yeah.
To me, if I'm putting my mayonnaise jar here to recycle, why do I want to take this other bottle, same material, and bring that to the, to me, we're just making it
Right.
more difficult and more expensive. So, but I may be in a minority on that.
No,
We'll
no,
see.
I've actually gotten with the program about recycling, so I was sort of a reluctant participant
Well,
for
I
for a
think,
while. But I'm
we,
with it
we
now.
have to continue to look at things to reduce things going into the landfill.
Right,
That's why
yes.
we went into composting.
Yeah.
So anything you can do on that is great.
Yeah.
But let's not confuse it by putting it in different
Right.
directions.
Right. Very
So.
good. That should be an interesting. Maybe I'll tune in. That's a cool thing. So you also, I was looking that you had the Pay Act this year, but
We
there's
did.
but there wasn't any bargaining. It's the every
No,
other every
last year, there's typically a 2-year
Yeah, right. 2 year.
contract. It was
Yeah.
agreed on. It was agreed on,
So this is the
not this
second
past winter, the winter before,
Yeah, okay.
pre-COVID.
year. Okay, right.
The administration came to the legislature with what the agreement was.
Right.
And unfortunately, then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
For a while,
Oh.
it looked like the sky was falling.
Right.
How do we honor this?
Right,
Can we honor it? If if the legislature doesn't appropriate the money, then the two sides have to go back and renegotiate.
Or this is what happened to me on my very first week in state government. I heard the phrase "Eat the Pay Act."
Oh,
Which
okay.
means
With the different departments
I have to
right.
honor my
Yeah.
employees. I have to give them
Right.
the increase, but I have to find it
In
in
your
my
budget.
budget.
Right.
I'm like, A, what is the Pay Act, and B,
Right.
why do I have to eat it or
Right.
want to? So
And what that typically results in is layoffs.
yeah, right. For sure.
So I don't think there was a stomach for doing that,
No, not
especially
from
during the
COVID.
pandemic.
Right.
But there was an uncertainty on revenue. So what the legislature did last year is they funded it for the first year.
Oh, I was wondering why that
And
was
then
there. Okay.
we'll come back and
Right,
revisit
right,
it.
right.
And fortunately,
This
the
year was
revenues
good.
are better. And in fact, the administration put it in their budget
Great.
proposal
Oh,
to
I'm
fund
glad
it.
I asked you
So-
because I thought this isn't a bargaining year.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
I
not.
see. Okay.
They're probably bargaining or starting now
Yeah, to
for,
prepare for next year.
next winter, yeah.
Because "Eat the Pay Act" are not good words, just as a
Yeah,
manager,
no,
I'm just telling you.
I
Like,
totally get it.
what
Most
the
of the
heck is
costs
that?
are personnel.
Yeah,
So, in fact, it's interesting, you go through some budgets and they were told, break even,
Oh,
don't
right,
spend any
right.
more than you
Well,
did last
that's
year.
"Eat the Pay Act."
And where you see it is vacancy savings.
right.
So, which means, you leave,
Right.
we're going to wait a little while before we fill your position.
Yes, we all know how to play that,
Yeah.
that game, the vacancy game. So then you also have the transportation fund.
Yes.
You've had that. That's out of committee now, you've put that out.
It
So
is.
that's a big one.
Yeah, the Transportation Committee does all the work
Yeah, they
on
do,
that. We
right.
just sort of like
whatever. Right, and then you had Capital Construction, Alice Ennis's
Sure.
group, and that's the same, they do all the.
Yeah, they have a 2-year budget, which I'm envious of because it actually lets you plan.
Oh,
They,
there's a
they
concept.
make adjustments the second year, but they basically, they're given a certain amount of money
Right.
of bonding
Yeah.
authority, and it's spread out over 2 years.
So if this bonding doesn't go so well this time, if we don't have a plan for pension, that's gonna hit the capital budget.
It definitely could,
Yeah.
because it will affect interest costs,
Right,
and it will affect our borrowing ability.
Right.
So,
well, I hope we have something to give them, whether it be in governance or policy, because I don't think employees realize, when I was listening to them at the public hearing, I mean, they were all, they're paying more,
sure,
staying longer for
I
work,
get it.
and we're getting less.
I get it.
I'd be pissed. Excuse me.
Sure.
Wrong, we erased that out. But I'd be mad too, and they were, I don't blame them.
yeah.
You know, they sort of put the trust in people, and here we are.
I know, but we have to
Oh,
face
it's
reality.
here. Yeah, no, I'm with you. We can't wait any longer. It's now, and they have to do something. They wanted to, I think we could do it in increments, perhaps. We don't have to,
Well,
there must be some way to ease into
I don't
this.
have a pension, but I do have Social Security, and I would be very upset
Oh, yeah.
if because I need that Social
Right.
Security. I'm planning on it.
Yeah,
But when they've done Social Security reform in the past, and unfortunately it's been far too long, because that's another problem waiting to happen.
yeah,
And eventually benefits will have to get cut, and that will affect me personally and many others.
Huh.
So what they did is they gradually changed. I think my retirement age
oh, yeah,
was-
they pushed it up,
yeah,
right.
is 66.
Right.
Someone younger than me might be 67.
Right.
I mean, but it was very gradual,
Right.
and the payroll tax. None of those changes are easy. Taxes increased a little bit
Yeah,
in terms
right.
of what we pay, the cap.
Yeah.
But we have to have those conversations. How do we
Right.
do it?
Nobody's gonna be happy. Everybody's gonna be hurting. I think it's sort of we're all in this together, and that's just the way
I mean,
it's gonna be.
some of the bills I voted against that come through our committee because they add new positions. And I'm of the approach, we have this huge pension problem.
Right,
Stop, take time out until we get that figured out,
right.
because it's in a small way. 2 positions is not going to
Oh,
make
it
it.
adds up, Jim.
But it adds up,
You're
and
right.
it's making it worse.
Right.
We haven't figured out how to pay for the ones we
Right,
have.
right.
So unless you can convince me that we got to have this,
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get somebody to explain, whether it be to the legislature or just to me, what TIAA CREF is. Joe Shuckett used to be the lobbyist from Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch? No. Downs Racklin. And he was the TIAA CREF guy.
yeah.
But he's been gone, I think. But the state college employees use the TIAA CREF, and they don't seem to be unhappy. So I don't know whether it's a
I don't
combined
know.
combined benefits or a combined contribution. It may be a good combined contribution plan.
Right.
But they use it in the state colleges. So why aren't we looking at that? I just thought it was.
Because it's hard to get everybody on the same
I
page.
yes, I know. But they're looking for alternatives. Maybe that's the alternative.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have to, you got to look,
Yeah.
because we've got to figure out that problem.
Yeah, it's really, I am, in this COVID thing, I'm very fortunate that I'm old and I'm retired, because nothing has happened to my income, everything, and they all protect the retirees so far.
Yeah.
So I feel very blessed. I don't say boo. As my Social Security comes in, my retirement comes in, I just zip it up. So anyway, there was a couple of other things that you said you might be able to talk about that and I think it hasn't, I don't see it here. Has it come to you yet, the statewide lunch Oh, school, it's in the Senate.
It's in the Senate.
coming over to you.
Last time I looked last week, it was still ordered to lie on the calendar.
Oh, lie, oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of pushback from the administration and others about the cost.
Right,
And you know, I heard from one of our superintendents. I have a couple different school districts in my district, and you know, we like the intent of providing,
right,
but please understand, it makes our school budget higher
right.
that the taxpayers have to pay.
And I appreciate the fact that they may be worried about somebody who can't pay and they embarrass the kid. I think that is, I can't even know what the words are, beyond disgraceful that you're going to argue over a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because the kid doesn't have $1.25.
Right.
There's got to be some fund, some way. If you're willing to pay for everybody, you should be willing to pay for the kids that don't have it. But the people that do have it, I'm just so disagree with that. Pay up. It's your children.
Right.
Pay for them.
Yeah.
And yet it's a fabulous program because I know somebody very well she lost her job. She took advantage of it. The minute she got a new job, the kids came off it and she paid for the lunch, which is, I think, the way it's supposed to be.
Sure.
If you need it, it's there for you. And I'm glad we do it. And I'm glad we do breakfast and lunch and meals in the summertime. But if you can afford it, you should pay.
Sure.
Sorry, just tell them I said that.
Okay.
That's what McDonald said.
Pat said.
Yeah, Pat said. Well, it makes no sense. Don't embarrass the poor children because mom forgot to give them the money. Just feed them and keep quiet about it.
Right.
But no.
So anyhow, I don't know where that's going to end up.
Oh, good. I'm glad maybe they're
But
rethinking that one.
I do know there is a strong interest in doing something. Whether it gets scaled back or something, I don't know. But money is, money's at the heart of everything, it seems.
Isn't it the truth?
Yeah.
Yes. Every time there's a problem, I'll say to my daughter, just look for the money. And she'll call me back. She goes, "You're right." I said, "Always is, somewhere along the line." So just for folks, I'm sure they know that individual legislators put in their own bills. They're either the lead sponsor or sign on to someone else's bills.
Sure.
You have 26 that your name is on. I counted them up.
Wow.
And 6 of them you're the lead sponsor on.
Yeah, I didn't, and I'm not doing very well with any of them this year.
Well, you don't have time to,
No,
if you're stuck in
to
a crunch,
advocate,
you don't have time
and
to
you
work
know,
them.
that's another downside to being Zoom, because I could ask people in the cafeteria, "Hey, you take up my bill yet?"
Exactly. Put the
It
pressure
was
on.
interesting. Last year, one of the bills I was a lead sponsor on had to do with training for first responders, especially our
whatever that is, that's a good one.
volunteer,
Yeah.
medics and stuff. And it's hard enough finding volunteers. And I was obviously pleased that it was getting attention. I had a bunch of co-sponsors with me because a lot of people, especially rural areas, they understand what was going on. And it was on the House floor the last day we met in March.
Oh, no kidding.
And it kept passing over it. And I'm thinking,
Uh-oh.
yeah, what's going on?
Something's happening.
Yeah. Well, it had come out of the Healthcare Committee. And what the Healthcare Committee did at the end of the day is they had this big amendment related to the COVID emergency. Had things like the licensing of retired medical personnel that reactivate their license because there was
They had to find a bill to attach it to.
and it got attached to my bill, and then it went over to the Senate, and then the Senate, quickly when they came back that following week, they took out the underlying bill. But we did some things, later on. But to me, I don't really care if my name is on any bills. Most of the bills I do is because, someone in my district has talked to me about it. One of the bills I did this year is H67, that's on that list.
Oh, yes.
And it has to
Agriculture.
do with bears.
Yes, I saw that.
How can you be against bears? Well,
Right.
bear population in Vermont has been growing. And as a consequence, they get into cornfields. They roll around, they eat some of it,
Ooh.
they do significant damage. And when I was going door to door, not this past election, the time before, I remember talking to a farmer, a brother and a sister in North Bridgewater. Before I left, I mean, they had that, 100-cow dairy farm, on a hillside, struggling.
Right.
They're not big enough, but they're big enough that they have a lot of overhead.
Yep.
And the woman was in tears before I left.
Oh.
And all I was doing was listening.
Right.
She said, we don't know if we're going to be here, next time you come by.
Wow.
And I said, look, I don't have the answer, but I will always be your advocate.
Good for you.
So when they came and said, look, we have this bear problem, can you do anything? Now, my bill, money, again,
Yeah,
where do you
right,
get the
right,
money
right.
to help them with it? But interestingly enough, before I came up here today, I got a handwritten note from a 6th grader in Windhall, Vermont, about H67.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know if the student was given a class project, pick a bill that.
Oh, no, well,
I
she
have
saw the
no
word
idea.
bear, that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
got her
yeah,
going.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but it is what it is. If legislators, as you know better than anybody, the work is done in committee.
Yep.
If you can ask the right questions, learn, hopefully make some suggestions that will help. I told people in my other committee, there are a number of things that I didn't agree, but I will still try to help you make it a little bit better
Yep.
before the bill goes out.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, because I actually helped one of the speakers of the House who was a Democrat when I was there.
Yep.
And I was asked to help with bills because I said the worst thing is when you people pass a bill that we can't administer.
right.
I mean, if you make it so bad that I can't turn around and put
Right.
it into effect, what good does it do? Then I have to go back the next year and ask for some rewrite of legislation. So for a lot of them, they would ask me to look at it and say, is this, and I say, I'm not voting yes on this. And they said, yeah, we understand. I said, well,
Right.
at least we can administer it.
Right.
Because that's really a pain when
Yeah.
they give us something we can't put into place. That doesn't help.
We all come from different districts. We represent different constituencies. We're all have different life experiences.
Right.
So the lens that we look at stuff is different.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're on the same team.
Right.
We may not vote the same way,
Right.
but at the end of the day, we're all Vermonters.
Yep.
And that, to me, is more important than anything. So, again, I may not like this particular initiative. I think it's going in the wrong direction. But if we're going to do it,
Let's do it right.
maybe we can,
Right.
make it a little bit
Right.
better so that it works, or at least
And
like
you
you
have a lot
intended.
of leeway in a committee. Most chairs want it to come, any bill to come out 100%.
you do. And sometimes, that's your leverage.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know,
Yeah. I think people don't realize how much influence you have in a committee
Yeah.
because the chair wants to say it came out 11-0
Right.
or whatever the number is.
When bills come out, unanimous, it sends a signal
Yeah.
to the rest of the body. Oh, they must have reached consensus
Yeah.
and worked out,
Yeah.
any differences, and there's a trust to that.
Yeah.
We had an example recently with H315, and it was 10-1. I was the one. So, but sometimes, it's okay not to be all on the
Right.
same page.
Right.
And, our chair reached out to me and says, is there
Anything I can do,
something,
right?
that we can, help you or
Yeah.
something? And I says, no, I'm just, it was like 20, I don't know, it was an additional $23 million over and above what we had spent between the budget and this bill. And I says, I'm out of my comfort zone. You know.
But if you have a good reason, whether they agree or not, if you can explain
it was absolutely
people are fine with that, I think.
You know, and I was up front, and you know, so, you know, I will try to work and try to support things so that, you know, we're all on the same team. But there are sometimes it's okay not to be, and just you agree?
As long as you can explain it. Because I was tracking this one bill, and one of the members said, you know, I'm voting no for this. And I was like, because listening to the testimony, I thought everybody was going to go kumbaya and go, you know, meet down the street somewhere and celebrate. So I called him up and I said, why? I emailed him and he called me back. And we had the best conversation about why. And I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And,
but the challenge today is doing this all in Zoom. Now, fortunately in Appropriations, none of us are freshman legislators. So we all know each other a little bit. We may not have served on the same committee together. Some of them have, obviously, but the personal interactions, I feel really bad for the new members because they don't have that at all. You know, maybe they've met others and talked to others, but those personal relationships are huge.
They are. That's true. It is. That's great. Well, you have a good committee, though. Is Representative Helm still on there, I think?
He is.
Yes. What's he, about 20 years now?
I don't know how long Bob has been on there. Bob sometimes forgets to turn off the mute button. And he has...
We know Mr. Helm.
Well, he gets frustrated like all of us do, and the computer, it doesn't always behave like it's supposed to, and you know, he's like, doggone it. I mean, and Bob, mute.
It always reminds me of Cola Hudson a little bit. So Jim, we're coming to the end of our time. This has been absolutely delightful, and I hope you've had a good time.
Well, I've enjoyed the conversation, Pat.
That's what we try to do.
It's great to have the interaction. It's great to actually get out of the house.
Yes.
And drive up here today. It's like, wow. It's like
soon. You said soon. I hope soon, because it's driving me crazy, people. But anyway, thank you, Jim, for coming on. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the sound bites.